Would you have said yes to Darcy's proposal? Why or why not?
Marry me.
No.
Okay.
Alright, I think that's time enough for you guys. Now on to the discussion. We got question 3. So in question 3 it asks, explain Lizzie's varying emotions after reading Darcy's letter in chapter 36. How are Pride and Prejudice a compound problem and not two separate problems in the novel? So what I noticed throughout the letter, is that Lizzie, she was very surprised. Of course, you could hear some of her thoughts based on the narrator's perspective on how she would say, well, this might not be completely true, or that's the fact that you couldn't realize my sister loved Mr. Bingley. It might have been false on Mr. Darcy's perspective. However, there were also moments in there where she realized she was illuminated by the truth, and I feel like that's an important aspect of that letter, where we realized how Pride and Prejudice are such a dynamic issue throughout the novel.
Yeah, like I feel like this is like just kidding, JK. But it's a compound problem because we see that Liz, her pride and her prejudice towards Darcy is she sees how she's kind of wrong about Darcy, and she revealed like the truth about him, but at the same time she still has pride within herself to see like, oh my gosh, I judged him wrong. He's actually not that bad of a person. But it's compound because she's too prideful to admit that he's not that bad, but at the same time, based on her own judgments, she feels like she should just keep her own opinion to herself instead of revealing the truth, quote unquote. And so I don't know, like, she does have varying emotions. She does she does show that she likes him, but she's taken aback a bit by the truth, because I guess she opens up her own eyes as well. She's kind of like, oh my gosh, I was judging this person, when she finds out the truth about his actions. And so Nelly has something else to say.
Wait, can I say
Like,
this?
how did it relate to our society? Like, how does this relate to our society today?
Like, what part?
I'll
Like
hold
the
it,
whole
I'll hold
Pride
it.
and Prejudice?
Sure, like that. Like, how does Lizzie's revelations throughout this whole novel reveal something about our society?
Dun dun dun.
Well, while she's recovering from her camera shyness,
She's having a seizure.
we're gonna go ahead and talk about how it relates to our society. One important aspect of this relating to our society is the fact that a lot of us nowadays, we already have a predisposed inclination against them, right? I believe that's how it goes. A predisposed inclination against them. And so, for example, nowadays, when we go on social media, we see people's Instagram and we automatically judge them based on what they post. But we don't get to know them as a person. And that is one thing Lizzie realized here. She kept judging Mr. Darcy simply on her own prejudice. And therefore, this letter gave her the true cold hard facts that she could no longer deny. And
I feel like, sorry not to cut you
go ahead.
off, but I feel like the setting in this novel also has something to do with it, because you couldn't be alone with the person, like two unmarried people couldn't be alone and talk to each other, because it'd be like, oh, you like her, I see you. And so I feel like Darcy, in sending the letter, he's able to talk to her, but not physically. So he's allowing himself to explain his own emotions. And so Lizzie, she made judgments about him also because of like the time setting that they're in. She can't really talk to him, can't really explain herself, or have him, vice versa, whatever. And so yeah.
And then, Danelli, there was one moment where we were talking, I remember, I remember how we were saying, how it was weird Mr. Darcy sent a letter. What was the reasoning why he said it was weird that he sent a letter, though, instead of just saying it to her?
I feel like he sent a letter because I feel like he couldn't express himself, or express his emotions straightforward.
Talk to the camera, sweetie.
Oh yeah. And I feel, well, he was asking me, but I feel also
she is a little flustered right now, so
no, I feel like
give her time.
like if he sent out a letter, like she didn't, like if she were to say no, like it wasn't gonna be like a straightforward like.
Was that even 10 minutes?
All right, ending sentence.
I don't even know. I lost my train of thought when she said
That it wouldn't be straightforward.
Yeah, I feel like he wouldn't. I feel like if he sent out a letter, it wouldn't like really like her response wouldn't have been like I don't know.
Well, let's talk about the format that it was in a letter. Because it was in a letter, she couldn't argue him or anything like that. She couldn't stop him.
Yeah.
So like, what else about the letter though do you think is so revealing about Mr. Darcy's character? Like, you know how he wrote letters earlier, like that's a skill of his.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about this skill?
She's very clever because he knows that Lizzie is the type of person who's not gonna, stay quiet like in a conversation because she's so witty and blah blah blah. So I feel like he planned it.
Let's walk and talk.
Yeah, walk and talk. All right.
Because we gotta get that 10 minutes.
All right, we're at 8 minutes right now.
So
My arm hurts.
So about the format of the letter, it's a discreet way of being able to fully talk.
Discreet, yeah.
Yeah, it's easy for him to basically immediately jab at her without her being able to fight back. And I feel that's an important
reject them.
Exactly.
Forward.
So what if he's afraid of rejection then? Is that how is love like a weakness for him per se? Like
it could be. We don't know for sure.
Maybe
because
he's scared.
like he was willing to open up to her. We saw how it was a struggle for him to be willing to propose to her in that one moment.
And maybe he didn't want
Let's
others to know.
Let's go around the building. We have 6 minutes.
Maybe he didn't want others to know. Like if she said no, he didn't want everyone else to know that she said no. So it was like through a letter.
So he still wants to keep his own pride on not being rejected.
Exactly.
But he also wants to. Okay, so we see that Mr. Darcy is pretty clever actually and witty. I mean, he's like, I don't want to be rejected. No, that's not me. And so, but at the same time, he's like, I'm gonna tell her how I feel without getting a response from her.
Exactly.
But what if he doesn't want a response? What if he's like, I hope she writes a letter back to me?
Well, I don't
that
think
could happen.
I think he prefers to send a letter for his own communication, but he likes to hear her because he loves the way how she speaks, how she thinks, how she talks. And so her wit is something he was attracted to. And if anything, Elizabeth realized how her wit was a cause of her flaw right now. And this might reveal how he might like someone with flaws because he's had such a perfect life all his life. Someone with a little bit of a flaw, but still somewhat similar to him, is something he's looking for.
But I also feel like since he wrote a letter, I feel like that gave her the chance to like think about it and not have to say an answer like straight like at that moment if like it would have been like face to face.
Yeah.
So I feel like with the letter, like she had the time to think about it and be like, oh, like I could say yes or I could say no, and not like she could reflect upon it, you know?
Yeah, this is like a climax of the story where we finally realize how Pride and Prejudice are very similar to each other. And so, as we realize throughout this novel, Pride and Prejudice are exactly the same thing through Lizzie because her pride prevented her from being able to see the truth, and that pride was a result of her prejudice. Exactly.
All right, peace out.